Hey everyone, Bellos Haunts here, and I'm here with the SoCal Scares Podcast. And today I have special guests Zach and Jeromy Ball from the Bloodshed Brothers.
Hello.
So, introduce yourselves to the podcast, and like what do you guys do and stuff like that.
I'm Jeromy,
I am Zach.
and like you said, we're the Bloodshed Brothers. We have been doing haunts, been part of the whole haunted house thing for 20 years. We started doing haunts in fifth grade in 2001, and we've been doing them ever since in some way, shape, or form.
Today we're just gonna be here. I'm gonna be here asking you guys like just childhood memories and stuff like that of Halloween. So I'm gonna have you guys dig a bit deep in that brain of yours.
Sweet. That sounds fun.
So, what got you guys into haunting?
Well, you can go because it was you.
Before the moment, like our parents are always big holiday people, and that's just how it was growing up. And I mean, we're talking like Valentine's Day, there's decorations, Easter, Christmas, Halloween. I mean, like they literally like only like Arbor Day did we not have like decorations or something. So our parents always made a big deal out of it, and I think that was just from their upbringing, and they both came from divorced parents and that sort of thing. So I think they really just tried to go out of the way to make it push holiday special for us because they wanted it that way, and we just assumed that's just how it was for everyone all the time. But in fourth grade, I got invited to a Halloween party with just two girls and myself, and I had zero interest in it. Like her mom was like, "Oh, here's crafts and can we cuss? Is that okay?"
Yeah.
Here's some crafts and shit. And I'm all like, that sounds so boring. So, and there's two girls there, and I'm like, ooh, girls, because I'm in fourth grade. So I was dressed as Jason that year. I had never seen a Friday the 13th movie, but I loved the hockey mask. Yeah. So I was just obsessed with that look. And then my dad cut up an old T-shirt, made it all bloody for me and stuff. And I had an axe, like a medieval battle axe, like classic from Party City. Didn't matter that Jason never used that. I just thought it was the coolest thing. So instead of doing crafts at this girl's party, I went outside and scared other trick-or-treaters. And I just pretended to be dead on the doorstep or whatever. And I got home and I'm like, Zach, you're not going to believe how amazing this was. And then for the rest of the night, we did that. And then the following year, we're like,
we maybe trick-or-treated for like a half hour. And we're done.
Yeah, and then we laid it out front of our parents' yard and just scared the last few trick-or-treaters that night. The following year, we're like, screw candy. Scaring people is the best thing in the world.
Let's do a haunted house.
Let's do that. And then also a neighbor like around the block from our parents' house did a haunted house. Wow. And we got the crap scared out of us going through that. So that combined with us getting to scare people on our own turned into us wanting to make haunted houses.
Oh, nice. It's always a different story with everyone, how they got into it.
Yeah.
So like, what was like your most like favorite memory like growing up with like Halloween or like with scaring and things like that?
I have one actually. So it was weird. It was Taco Bell.
That's what I was gonna say. Okay, we're good.
Like we're twins or something. Taco Bell in like our third grade was doing selling Goosebump toys, and they had a bunch of cardboard cutout display pieces that were decorating the Taco Bell. And we came home from school, and my dad had gone to Taco Bell and had either bought or they gave him all of these cardboard displays, and they were like huge tombstones with like the different characters from Goosebump books. And my dad decorated the yard, and we had a whole Goosebump themed yard hunt before we knew what a yard hunt was.
Yeah,
and
yeah, that was really cool. He got them from a Taco Bell in LA because he worked up there, and it was the day of. So they're like, yeah, we don't want this anymore. And I'm pretty sure they just gave him all these, like cardboard cutout displays, and it had all the big characters that when Goosebumps was super popular.
There's pictures too.
There's pictures, yeah. There's like Slappy, the dummy, and there's like the evil hamster, and there's some skeletons and tombstones, and like that was the first year like they went like all out as far as like decorating is concerned.
Yeah,
that's a good one. And then I also remember one year we had this big tree out front when we first moved to that house in like 92 or 93. There's a big tree out front, and my dad put this big sheet over it with an actual giant pumpkin head that he carved, so it looked like there's a giant ghost in our front yard. So that it always sticks out to me too.
Yeah, and that's awesome because like everyone starts with maybe a small cardboard cutouts and stuff like that, and we end up with these big crazy haunts like the ones you guys do nowadays.
Yeah.
So, what was your guys' first memory with Halloween? Like, not haunts and stuff, but first memory of Halloween or trick-or-treating, stuff like that.
My earliest memory, and it's hard to say if it's an actual memory or because we watched the home video so many times.
The pirate year.
When we went as pirates one year, and like Hook, with Robin Williams had just come out, so like pirates were like really really big again. Like it kind of went away, and then Johnny Depp made it popular. But back then it was Hook, and that movie is still one of our favorite movies. We were pirates, and we won a Halloween contest, and this was 93. Mm-hmm. This was 93.
93.
We were, how old were we? 89. We were like 4.
4 years old.
We won a Halloween costume contest at the apartment complex that we were at, and then we trick or treated, and we ate fettuccine and cream soda, dressed as pirates, like with our mom put like fake mustaches on and beards and stuff, and we both had hooks, we both had eye patches. Because you could buy like Captain Hook and Peter Pan sets at like the toy store back then.
Yeah.
So that's the earliest memory. So like 4 years old, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow. So young haunters, young.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what made you guys like change from the idea like, hey, home haunts are great and stuff. Why not jump up the next level and go to pro haunt?
So that we were doing our home haunt, like a giant walkthrough at our parents' house. We kind of weren't even like, we kind of knew.
We had the dreams of doing it, like,
and we knew that like on the East Coast, like you could make money doing haunted houses, but like even back then, we're all like, if unless you're not so universal, like you can't. No one does a haunt here. Like there's no pro haunts really, especially back then. So we didn't really think about it, and then we got an email from the Storm Stadium being like, hey, would you guys be interested in running our haunted house event? And I initially said no. I'm like, that's too much to handle. Like, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. Like, it's too much, especially because they wanted to pay us. I'm like, that means like someone else is expecting us to do a good job.
Yeah.
Versus in our driveway, it's like, it doesn't really matter because it's just us. Yeah. So it was Jeromy who said,
let's just at least go meet with them.
Let's go meet with them. And so it was kind of like a happy accident. We went to the Storm Stadium the year prior, and we just filmed a review video and threw it up on YouTube. And they saw that, and it's one of those things where they're like, well, it seems like these guys know what they're talking about, so maybe we should bring them into it for an interview.
Yeah. And but even back then though, it was like the idea of being able to do it full time and like not have to work real jobs, like that was always there. And we had done some, like I had been to Knott's before, like we had been to the stadium before, so we had been to some pro hunts. But like Zach said, it's like you only hear stories of people making a living off it, in Texas or the East Coast, because there's nothing else to do. We live, unfortunately, like we live in the entertainment capital of the world. Yeah. Even being down in Temecula, an hour and a half away from LA, doesn't matter. People, that's just the mentality here. There's so much to do year round that people don't want haunts year round. So the whole thought of like, oh, we could go pro, it just kind of happened and we just went along with it. Versus it was like a strategic plan. Mm-hmm. And then because we got a taste of what it's like to do it for money and what it's like to almost make enough money to quit our jobs, that was what keeps us going. Obviously that we love it too. It's not just money and stuff and wanting
the money's nice,
but money helps.
Yeah. So like, what was like one of your like craziest ideas, like going back to home haunts, and we're not going to talk about pro haunts just yet, but what was the craziest year you guys done as a home haunt?
2011 was our
2010
last 2010. Our last year, because it had been at our parents' house a few times, but it was like
2009-10.
Yeah,
just 2 years.
2 years, and well, in 2003 that one time, but it had finally like really built up to be this thing. We were that year we were like officially known as the Bloodshed Brothers, like on Haunt Forum and on we had started the YouTube channel and stuff
on our MySpace.
So we had just started like the whole YouTube thing, and so people were like really into that and being like, oh wow, like the first haunted house vlogger is what people said to us. And all we did was like, instead of being like, oh look, here's a cool prop. It's like, hey, here's a cool prop. Now I'm gonna talk about it. And so then that was the only difference we were doing than other people. But that year we had like 1,200 people show up in our parents' front yard. It was a 3-hour wait to get in the maze. Police were driving by. My mom is out there yelling at people to stay on the sidewalk, and the whole maze just nonstop. It was like till midnight.
The haunt as a whole is like the coolest thing.
Yeah, that whole year it was just, and then everything that goes along with with the things you learn. It's like an hour into the night, I forgot to turn the fog machines on, and I'm like, oh my god, our graveyard looks like crap because the fog machines aren't on.
Well, I have 2 stories from that year that stood out. One, when we had our chainsaw, because just chainsaw at the end of the maze, chase a girl out. She dropped to the street and she just started crying like in the fetal position, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is the stuff right here. And then a neighbor
Carol,
our neighbor, terrified of clowns. We lied and told her that there's no clowns inside the haunt, and so halfway through you go through the clown room and there's a giant clown, and but I ran inside before she had gotten to the room. I'm like, hey, our neighbor's coming to our main clown. You can follow her the rest of the maze if you want. Like, you don't have to stay in your room. And he's like, okay, great. So he followed her out to the exit of the maze, or chased her out rather. And then he stopped dead at the exit, and I leaned over. I'm like, chase her home, and took off down the street.
She had to live 15 houses away from our parents.
Yeah, and
the whole way he's like, Carol, and he's just chasing her. And she's a middle-aged woman, and and goes inside, locks her door, and that was
banging on her front door.
Yeah.
So those 2 stand out for.
Because I always tell our actors, you want to be, you don't want to be the actor that's just like, oh wow, that was scary, I'm gonna remember that for the rest of the night. You want to be so good that when they get home, they're worried that you're gonna be there too. That's what we always tell people. Be so scary that they don't want to turn the lights off because they're worried you're gonna pop out of their closet. Like follow them home, but like in their heads.
Wow, so you guys really went out with the home haunts.
Oh yeah,
it was crazy.
It was almost out of control. It was almost too much that year.
Yeah, it was nuts.
So like with growing up with very like supportive parents, and like where they like did almost anything for every single holiday, did they reach like a point where like they're like, this haunted house is getting too out of hand, or you guys are getting too big and stuff like that?
They were like that until they saw how everyone was enjoying themselves. The customers, they loved being the celebrities of the street, on Halloween night. But up until then, like during the build, they're like, what are you guys doing? This is too much. It's too much of a mess. It can't be here next year. And then so like thankfully we went to the stadium, because I don't honestly know if they would have let us keep doing it. And it kind of because our parents' house is set up, you can't really go in the backyard one way and out the backyard another way. It all kind of has to circle back and get on top of each other. Yeah. So it kind of outgrew our parents' house. It got to the point where right before we got hired at the stadium, we were still planning that next year's home haunt, and it was involved building staircases over our parents' patio and using our neighbors' driveway and side yard, because they not those neighbors, but neighbors prior cemented like their whole side yard because they had parked an RV there. So there was just all this open sidewalk area. So we were literally like, how do we get people up and over this wall, over all these hedges, and back down into the neighbor's yard, so we can extend the haunt into their area. Wow. But now our parents are also like, well, we kind of miss it. Like, you could do it at the house again if you wanted. Turn the lights on.
So, like, have you guys ever been to like any haunt, like home haunt, where like you guys like reminded you guys like, oh, like we want to do home haunts again or stuff like that?
Honestly, most home haunts do that, only because like, I mean, it's so different, the feelings behind it, because like the way I describe it to people, doing a pro haunt, it's like having Halloween happen to you like 16 times a year, and so it's like you have all this work and all this build up for 1, 2, maybe 3 nights, and it's like all this guts and glory. But then by the time Halloween rolls around in the pro hunt, it's like, oh my god, like another night, like this is so much. So like being also like the laid back, low key vibes of home hunts,
and you can tell the love that goes into a home haunt. Like it's well, especially when you're a haunter, like it's apparent. Like if you're just a normal person, it's just like, okay, this is some cool spooky thing I'm walking through. But like walking through home haunts now, it's just like, like you just know how much someone cares about what they're doing, or even if it's just a yard display, it doesn't have to be a walkthrough or anything. Versus like with a pro haunt, whether it's ours or Universal's or whatever, it's just like, well, it's just a haunt. It's a haunt for a haunt,
And I think the other difference too is like at a home haunt that the people that live that house physically did that themselves. For us, it's like it's still our pro haunt is just a home haunt on steroids because it's DIY. It's us two and a few people. But the big corporations, the big theme parks, they're paying people. Painters, builders. They have people on the payroll for every step of it. So you kind of lose that. Not that they don't have heart, but it doesn't have as much heart, I feel, as a home haunt does. And that's what makes me miss home haunts, is going through a home haunt being like, oh man, I remember when it felt like this.
Yeah. And also sometimes the stress might be lighter on doing a pro haunt rather than a home haunt, stuff like that.
The stress definitely varies, it sucks about home haunts is like you worrying about fire and police and, all the, definitely not up to code and all that kind of stuff. And you're worrying about people,
neighbors calling and complaining.
Are people actually going to trick or treat in your neighborhood? Because like in our neighborhood, when we grew up, when everyone was young, trick or treaters all night. Now our parents barely see 100 trick or treaters because everyone in the neighborhood has already grown up and left. So, but also the same could be said for pro haunts. You hope people show up, like Knott's and Universal, that's going to happen regardless. Yeah. But for us out in the backwoods of Paris at a museum, like we're really
hoping to God people show
really up. Hoping people show up.
Yeah. Sometimes it varies for a lot of people. So what were you guys' expectations going into pro haunts? Like, did you guys think like, oh, we're just gonna do one big huge haunt, or like you guys are thinking like, oh, we have to do like multiple different haunts with different themes?
Well, when we first started, that was our whole selling point. It was like, we have a whole maze, so you guys can hire us and double your show essentially,
because they had enough panels to do like a maze and a half essentially.
Yeah. So when we started, we brought our own theme. And then we did this zombie theme that they wanted us to do at the stadium, which I think was a good challenge. Not a big fan of it now, but when it was happening, it was fine. Every year they wanted new themes. So every year we had to recycle the same junk that we have and the stadium had. So, an asylum turned into an orphanage. An orphanage turned into... An orphanage turned into... So the asylum turned into an orphanage. We had a hillbilly maze turned into like... a hillbilly cafe. We had an exorcism maze, which I'll always say exorcism, which I love. We had
High Tree lasted 2 years.
High Tree lasted 2 years. Darkness had like 3 different names. It was always Darkness. So it was always like being pushed creatively
to recycle.
But our expectations, I guess, it was just like, let's just see if we can get this thing done. And it was so hard because our first year we didn't have a lot of volunteers. Me and Jeremy were very much like it. We wanted to have hands on everything. We weren't good at delegating or giving away the creativity.
We were afraid someone was just going to mess it up, so we didn't. So we did it all ourselves.
There's an old vlog that's called like 48 Hours to Opening.
We're tore up.
We are tore up. I have dried paint on my face. I haven't showered in 3 days. My hair's all long. I have a bad tan because we've been in the sun.
Our first year was 116 degree build days. It was like, so the day 2 into building, we both like got heat exhaustion. We're like, we can't do this. We're just little boys.
Yeah. So yeah, we're just trying to do our best. Now our expectations are let's have fun. Let's get it done. Let's have fun. Let's scare the crap out of people. That's ultimately what it goes down to.
Yeah, we could see that a lot in the build vlogs and the vlogs that you guys upload. Sometimes they're like just crazy funny. Yeah, others like you get ideas from it, like, oh, like they're doing this room like this. Maybe if we could adjust it, if we are doing something similar, we could maybe adjust it to that and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we do the same thing. It's like, I love seeing everyone's stuff on YouTube or Midsummer being like, hey, we have an idea that's similar. I mean, because like haunt themes are so easily cycled through that, everyone kind of eventually does the same thing at some point.
Yeah.
But the inspiration everyone can get from each other, I think, is a good thing. And then, and not to soapbox too much, but people are always like, and maybe you experience this too. People are always like, "Oh, why do you show so much? You're giving away your build. Like, no one's gonna come if they can see behind the scenes." It's like, I don't agree with that, because like we're sharing our creativity. Maybe that sparks someone else's creativity, and for me, it's like if I see a behind the scenes on like a movie that I like, I'm still gonna go watch the movie.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And talking about the vlogs, there's this thing that's been going on with you, Jeremy. How many times do you think exactly throughout your YouTube career have you said "God damn it"?
I don't know. It's weird. It's such a weird thing too.
I'm gonna say like probably around 100.
It's such a weird thing, because like it's not in my vocab anymore. It's still in that outro, then because it's just a good outro. But like I truly, after the stadium, I truly got out of the habit of saying it.
You say it at the haunt. You don't say it in everyday life. For a while, you were everyday life. You were saying it, but
so hundreds, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because lately in the vlogs, it seemed like sometimes you would force it out, and sometimes in the older vlogs, it'll come out just naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that I can't even necessarily take credit for that, because there's an old YouTuber. There's an old YouTuber named Tobuscus, and he used to do video game streaming stuff. And whenever he would die, he would be like, "Oh, God dang it!" And so we watched so much damn Tobuscus back then that I just caught on, and then that's where it came from.
Exactly. Do you have anything like similar to like how Jeremy has like grew up with the "goddamn" and saying it? Like, do you think you had something like said something like a phrase or something, or an action that you've done in the vlogs or something?
The first thing that pops into my head is when I purposely get the camera out and say something stupid or like a pun, and you just like kind of sigh and like walk away or something.
I guess my trait, I'm just easily annoyed by people on the vlog. I don't know.
It's like Ernie and Bert.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really anything.
Daggett and Norbert.
Yeah.
Angry Beavers.
So, we're gonna hop over to Pro Haunts. I've only been through you guys' haunt once during midsummer, and it was amazing, incredible. Oh, how did you guys like start planning for those events? Like, instead of doing like your regular haunt, like start planning for cons and conventions, all that.
So this may be like making us sound lazy, but like especially when you see everyone like being like, "Oh, it's May 1st. Let's start building everything from scratch for our midsummer booth." And you see like Cal Haunts being with their awesome entrance to Hall of Shadows, and for us it's like, what panels are stacked up the highest that we can grab down first, and what are some easy things like decorations to bring. And it got to the point where, which it still works. Like, I mean, so we just especially because we are in the middle of pre-building for the actual haunt, and usually the weekend after midsummer is our first build weekend. So we're trying to keep it as simple as possible for us. But it got to the point where people actually at midsummer started noticing, and they're all like, when are the Bloodshed Brothers going to do something different? So
I mean, but also it's like, with working full time, we have to rent that U-Haul on a Thursday after work or a Wednesday after work, so we can be at the Hall of Shadows bright and early Thursday morning, and then tear it all down Saturday night, and then Sunday night, get home at 2 a.m. because teardown took so long. Unload the U-Haul just so we can get it back, just so we can be to work on Monday. So it was like, how can we do this as quickly as possible? Which is why now, like last year at Hall of Shadows, fucking 8:45 rolls around, Bloodshed Brothers are out, so we can go to bed.
Yeah.
Now though, we're in a place where we can take additional time off work. But
if midsummer would have happened this year, we were going to do a preview for our clown maze we were going to do this year before everything got canceled. So it would have been like, look at us showing up with something completely different.
I even had the idea, which no one's done before in the Hall of Shadows, is to do 2 mazes. We have our big ass space, so why not do
2 smaller experiences?
Yeah, I mean, one line for the whole thing, and you just go to the next one. But like, build a little hype street, build a little clown maze, and in between, set up like a cool photo op of all of our blow molds, kind of like how Spooky Hollow or Pumpkin Hollow,
Wicked Pumpkin Hollow
does their pumpkin display. That's a huge photo op, kind of in that vein. I thought it would have been really cool to be like, well, the Bloodshed Brothers will have 2 mazes this year, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I've been noticing like throughout, like you guys been doing the Hyde Street Massacre, and every year you guys are still keeping the Hyde Street Massacre theme, but like changing it in some sort of way because it's a big old long story. Yeah, as you guys said multiple times. Like how?
Yeah, there's still. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, like how do you guys like get ideas? Like think like, oh, we have the story. How do we apply it differently every single time?
So the High Street backstory was professionally written for us. We paid an author to write it back in the day, and that story's so long and detailed that there's stuff in it that we haven't even been able to touch on because it's so elaborate. It's elaborate. It's an elaborate story. Like there's a part in the backstory where it talks about police officers going into High Street and going down into a basement that's flooded with 3 like electrocuted bodies dangling there.
I think, and some of the words are like ankle deep in blood.
Ankle deep in blood. So like stuff. So it's like obviously that, if we wanted to make that sort of scene, that's going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's what. So High Street will keep on growing until we're able to, I think, get everything in that backstory, and it's always going to be our staple haunt because the idea is, in a perfect world, we're not given, but we have a building, let's just say 150,000 square feet of building, and Hyde Street becomes, you just have the Hyde Street Massacre, and you have all these haunts, all these mazes lined up.
What looks like a city street.
What looks like a city street, and you have them all on Hyde Street, and Hyde Street has its own little backstory itself, not the maze. It's just a cursed street. And so you have the Hyde Street Massacre, you have the house theme maze, and then you have the Hyde Street Carnival, and you have your clown maze, you have the Hyde Street Insane Asylum, you have your asylum maze, and it's all lined up next to each other. That's the idea. That's what we want to do one day. So Hyde Street will always be the name of our haunt, in that sense. But yeah, for now it's just the house theme, just the vintage Halloween theme, and so people just love it too. Like who would have thought the perfect distraction scare is nostalgia?
Oh yeah,
you just slap a shaker ghost and a blow mold in a room, and everyone's like, oh wow, and they don't even notice the giant Jeromy in a blow mold costume
or the drop panel
with a shaker can. Like,
but then also it's like, like we don't want to get bored with it either. So every year we find little ways to tweak High Street to make it interesting. Yeah, for us. Like the whole idea of High Street is that it starts off nostalgic and wholesome, and then slowly builds into like a gore fest. Well, now as soon as that blow mold room is over, like if we were going to open this here, we're going to just punch you in the face with the intensity and the gore. Like no more Halloween oldies on the inside. It's just straight. Just punch you in the face in like as intense as it can get without us touching you. Like that's what we want from like start to finish in High Street.
Yeah, and that helps with those trailers that we inherited. There's so much stuff in there that we can really amp up how High Street will look.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about like the more extreme scenes, have you guys ever thought of maybe doing it as an extreme haunt where like guests have to sign a waiver and everything, where you guys could touch them and do more things with them?
We actually did.
Yeah, we did that one year. Our first year on our own without the stadium, we did have an upgrade where we would like put a little blood on your forehead, and you could get cussed at, you could get touched or whatever. And everyone that did it absolutely loved it. I think the only way we could ever do that again is if we found someone or a venue or something that's down enough and cool enough to let us do it. The museum itself is more interested in having like as family friendly as things can get. Like they're okay with getting scared and it being like making kids cry or whatever.
And they're good with gore in the mazes, but like if it came to contact, I don't think they'd be good with it.
I mean, I would love to. Like, I mean, I not to the sense where it's going to be like 17th or crazy, but I've always been a fan of light touching and being able to get too close for comfort and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I remember at Knott's, I think it's like 2009 at Knott's when they had their what was the maze? Was it Club Blood maybe? And there's that big man lady.
Oh no, it was the asylum.
It was the asylum. A big man lady dressed up as a nurse came up and touched Jeromy and said like, "Hey, big boy," and like rubbed his hand all the way down my chest, like right above my like belt line. And I swear, I felt that like the rest of the night. I was just like, ugh. So like stuff like that, I absolutely love. And like I haven't been to 17 Door in the last 2 years because it's a little too intense for me now. But the first year we went to 17 Door, I loved it. I ate it up so much. I loved getting touched and thrown around. Mm-hmm. I think it's so fun. I wouldn't ever do McCamey Manor. Not that. That's too much. Way too much for me. And that doesn't even classify as a haunt anyway.
So, torture, basically.
Yeah. Which to each his own. If that's what you're into, that's what you want to sign up for. I'm not going to fault McCamey Manor for that. Yeah. But just not my style. But if we could get back to touching and cussing, totally would. Mm-hmm.
So now let's hop back into like your guys' experiences. Not much into the haunts and going through like different haunts and stuff like that. What was the moment where you've been like most scared, where like you couldn't sleep at night, or like it just shut you off completely?
There was we've been to a lot of damn haunts because we go to a lot of damn haunt conventions. But one of the times I was most scared, and it was such a stupid thing. It's not even that scary, but I was in a claustrophobia tunnel, and it was a real quick pop-up hunt at the Mulligans down the street, and it was like one-time thing. It wasn't that detailed, wasn't great. It was just okay. And I was in a claustrophobia tunnel. I've been in thousands. Claustrophobia tunnels are fine. They don't scare me. They gross me out because there's so much human contact, and I'm pushing through. It's kind of loose, so I'm pushing through, and I look down. And there's a girl with a flashlight, a little girl, maybe 5 years old, turns the flashlight on, blood dripping out of her mouth, and she has like the no eyes prosthetic, so it looks like her eyeballs are gone. She looks up at me and she screams, and it scared the shit out of me. I turned around on claustrophobia tunnel.
And Jeromy runs into me. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And Jeremy's like, there's a girl. I can't. And I look over his shoulder, and there's the little girl who looks at me doing the same thing. I'm like, yeah, no, that's understandable. It was so scary. One of the more intense moments I had, like where it didn't really scare me, but it stuck with me for years. We were it's called the 100 Hicker Manor in Pennsylvania. Our friend Ethan used to run it outside of
Pittsburgh. They had this room where there was a girl, and she like was like had her legs up on like stirrups, and she was saying her dialogue was something about like get it out of me, like insinuating that she had some sort of demon inside of her, and she had a pregnant belly on. Well, then this big guy comes out of nowhere with a chainsaw, puts it in between her legs, and she starts screaming, and he's laughing. The chainsaw's going off, and then they spray you with a bunch of water. Mm-hmm. And that was dope. It was so good. And that to this day is still one of my favorite haunts I've ever been to, because it was a perfect mix of actors, lighting, like the LED, like theatrical lights, but natural lighting, like in the rooms. It was so good.
Wow. So, as you guys said, like you guys been to many haunts. You guys been to Transworld, as you guys posted on your vlogs and all that. What was like the craziest prop or effect that you guys seen at one of these shows or haunts?
I mean, I'm still a big Poison Props fan. Their animatronics are cool. I think the first time going to Transworld, though,
that's crazy.
Like going into the Dark Zone and seeing Scare Factory's stuff. When people talk a lot of shit on Scare Factory sometimes, but just like the scope of how big everything is, it's like, oh my god, like we're just little home hunters from Temecula. We've never seen anything like this, and it was.
Well, I think cool. I mean, I have two parts of this, but for us too, growing up when we were doing a home hunt, one of the only haunt websites that we actually had found back then was Scare Factory. So we were looking at all these props.
We would sit and just daydream, being like, well,
if we saved our Christmas money for, the next 4 years, we could afford this thing from Scare Factory.
We could get this animatronic, like they'll sell it static, so it's only $800 instead of $2,000. Yeah. And then we also found Gorgalore back then too.
I was going to say Gorgalore was
and we would also we actually were emailing Kevin from Gorgalore, the owner, being like, well, like we're just two little twin boys, like what could you give us a discount, like? And he's like, no. No, but like you can buy stuff in bulk and you get a discount.
Yeah. So seeing Scare Factory was cool, but seeing Gorgalore in person just in general was really cool. That first year there, it was they just started. They had like their giant like 10-foot tall walk around characters, but they just started doing like the puppets and stuff that our first year. So seeing those and being able to actually they let you play with them, that was cool.
Also, the smell of Transworld
is indescribable.
Well, no, you can describe it.
Yeah,
it's a mix between the convention center and con food, but then just fog and
latex
and like that latex smell. It just smells like a haunt. And there's so many people that build these big elaborate sets that it has that plywoody smell, that paint smell, that fog smell. It's amazing.
Yeah, so nothing compared to Midsummer, where it's just like heavy fog, haunts, and like maybe just a couple like latex masks and stuff like that.
Well, honestly, like Midsummer is the closest thing I feel like.
If you want size wise, yes, but Midsummer is you're more your artists, not your haunted house vendors. That's the only difference. But like size wise, Midsummer is the biggest convention next to Transworld Halloween convention wise.
And and like the Hall of Shadows, that's unique.
That's one of a kind.
That's unique to Midsummer. And honestly, like if I were just a person like going to either one, I would choose Midsummer because you get to go through all these haunts. If you go to Transworld, you want to go on a haunt tour, it's be like $125 to go to like the Lemp Brewery haunt and the Darkness. And like the Darkness is it's cool for what it is, but it's not. No, I mean no haunt in my opinion is $125 good or cool, but yeah. So I mean that's why I love Midsummer. But then you have like the Midwest Hunters Convention.
I've been to. That's which is a mini. It's a mini Transworld. Some of the smaller vendors, some of the vendors from Transworld vend at MHC, but at Transworld, all these vendors have got their orders for the entire season, so they don't need to go to any other shows. Them going to Midsummer, it doesn't make any sense for them because they're trying to finish filling all their orders. Yeah. As awesome it would be to see, them there, but same thing with MHC. It's just there's some of the smaller ones because it's all Midwestern people.
And so, for the 20 years you guys been doing haunts, how have you guys seen haunts change? Like, have you guys seen where like they've changed dramatically in a positive way, or that they've slowly been changing?
I think it's definitely gotten more mainstream, which is fine. I think that's a good thing for the industry overall. We started doing Transworld stuff right when, and it's crazy because it just seems like it's not a big deal now. But like when LEDs were just taking off, when there's booths being like having to try to pitch LED lighting to a haunt, and now it's just like it's a commonplace sort of thing. So it's weird going to now, but it was weird being like someone's trying to sell me all these little light bulbs, and it's like I could just plug in a lamp and spray paint the light bulb in my haunt and save all this money. But now it's just like it doesn't make sense if you don't. And now they're cheap to buy too. Yeah. But like back if you wanted like you were gonna pay like $600, $700, $800 for a package of some LED spots and pinpoint lights. I've seen it go. I mean, from just like, and then how do you explain it? It's like a lot of people still think that like haunted houses are just weird people setting up some plastic in their garage. Yeah. And so I've seen it go like the mentality change from that to people getting understanding what it is more. Seen it go from a regular haunt like kind of what we do to interactive, like choose your own scare sort of thing, to the intense like the McCamey Manors and the 17th Door and all these different styles and versions of haunting, and I think it's really cool. And another change is just how much everyone shares too. I mean, that's mostly because of social media, but back especially when we started doing it, like like Jeromy said earlier, people would honestly kind of be upset that that's telling us we overshared stuff. Because like haunts, and a lot of haunts still do it. Like the big guys do it. The big haunts don't want to share stuff, even like promotional stuff, like a cool picture of like an actor in one of their rooms. They don't want to show that because it shows one of their room designs. It's like it makes no sense to me. That, and then how, I mean, this is case in point here, how young the young generation is. True. Like, because 20 years ago, it's like just me and Jeromy. Like, it was like I don't know anyone really our age back then that was doing haunted house was nice, like to the point where we wanted to do it full time.
Yeah. So, but then it's also weird going from like, oh wow, these guys are so young, and we're still generally considered young for like the industry standard, but going from, oh wow, look at these guys and their young talent, to being like, to now seeing everyone younger than us be way more talented.
Like we feel like the old guys in the
100%, which is dope as fuck. That we'll go see your haunt and we'll go see everyone else's haunt and be like, how are these guys doing this? Truly, like, if you were to be like, here's a prop controller, program it, I'd be like, the fuck?
Right. Let's call Bellos. Let's call Murder House. Let's call Twisted Minds. Like let's call anyone else, because we don't know what we're doing with any of that.
Yeah. So that's a big change too. Is growing up with the industry and then watching other people like get into it and grow up with it too, which is really dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like as you've seen, like the new wave, like Twisted Minds, myself, and a few other haunts were like, we're between the 16 to 18-year-old guys, just like people doing haunts and stuff like that. Have people like compare your haunts to like different, like ours, like even smaller ones, or like oh, like these guys are like catching up to the Bloodshed Brothers quality or stuff like that, or like they're gonna grow bigger and stuff like that.
No one's ever said that, but I mean the most we ever get is, the generic, scarier than Nazi, you were scarier than Universal,
or the opposite end being like, we could have paid $10 more and gone to Knott's, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, if the younger guys catch up to us, that's fine.
That's fine. Like honestly, like,
I mean, because then there's more. I mean, it sucks because like we're so far south, it seems, compared to everyone, all the other like haunters we know. But like if it was like, oh, like a level playing field, like you guys caught up to us or whatever, it's like, well, shoot, then it's like, well, go up the road if you want like an equally dope haunt sort of thing. Just go up the road. But it sucks because we're 2 hours away.
But
from
also,
everyone.
like having so much talent around us, being friends with so many talented people, it really like makes us look at our own stuff and be like, okay, what can we do to keep up? Because we feel like we're the ones that have to catch up with you guys, not that you guys have to catch up with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
we're so low tech.
Like,
it's
honestly,
crazy.
it's like we spend money on wall panels and we've been collecting literally trash for 20 years, and that trash just happens to look good inside a maze.
No, but don't, like, you guys aren't the only people that do that, because there's a lot of people where like they basically do the same thing, where like they're not as technologically advanced in their haunts, but like with practical effects and all that, like they just sell it like it's $1,000, like $1 million haunt.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people, and because like people will message us all the time being like, I don't have any money, like I want to do a home haunt, like what do I do? And I tell people, because we didn't have any money when we were in 4th grade, it's like, if you can tell a joke, you can scare someone. You just turn off the lights, lay out in your front yard, just scare people, and then go from there. And it's like, and now, especially now, like you can go to Spirit and get, their knockoff prop controllers and their, you can get everything at Spirit now. Like it's so inexpensive to actually like build a haunt. But, I just tell people like, it doesn't matter if you have props, if you don't have props. We are here to scare people. You're the prop, and that's it. That's it. We're just here to scare people. So figure out how you can do it with your budget or your means or whatever, and just do it.
And like talking about like props and all that stuff, what do you guys prefer? A haunt filled with actors scaring, or a haunt filled with props and little to no actors?
I like a mix of both. I love a good prop to distract me from an actor scaring me.
Mm-hmm.
I love that so much. But I've never gone through a haunt that has so many animatronics that I'm like, oh, this is too high tech. This is too fancy.
Mm-hmm.
Because we love them so much that if it's full of actors, I will love it. If it's full of animatronics, I love it. The only time I don't ever love a maze is if I walk through and there's just like little things like, oh, well, this, like, there's no music. Like, that drives me nuts. It's like, oh, wow.
I no soundtrack at all.
No soundtrack. Like, I just walked through the last 5 minutes and I can hear the cars outside. I can hear, people talk. I don't like that. So, like, little stuff like that is what bugs me about haunt. Yeah. But if I can go through a haunt where it's a perfect mix
of actors and animatronics, I'm in heaven.
But then at the same time, nothing can replace an actor. Like it's like I'm trying to. We went to the Nightmare Factory in Oregon, and the haunt is run by the Oregon School for the Deaf. So all of their actors are students at the school, and they're all deaf. And not all of them, but most of them are deaf. They were so good and so scary because they can make noises that we can't because they can't hear themselves. Yeah. So they're making these weird screeches that were almost seemed like not of this world, and it was terrifying. And they have like all the cool props and stuff and animatronics, but having like a good, it's like it's just so good.
It's like a prop is dope, but that prop's not going to follow you out of the room. That prop's not going to get in your face. That prop obviously could break, but an actor could also not show up. Yeah. But like an actor can read the situation and read the mood and read the environment and know when you have to back off, know when you can get in their face, know when you can keep going, and that's why I think that's one of the reasons why we. We don't not get into animatronics because we could afford it now. We could start buying animatronics, but I just love that so much that I think just subconsciously we're just like, let's just keep doing that because that's what we love. Yeah. But we're gonna be getting into animatronics in a real big way next year.
Yeah, with all those trailers you got with the poison prop spiders and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, so excited.
Yeah. I'm excited to just get those out and start playing with them. Mm-hmm. We just gotta clean out Zach's garage first. Yeah. Swell hunt stuff.
So, what was like your guys' like crazy like an idea that you guys had that you guys like dreamed about it all day and night, like you guys couldn't stop thinking about it, and like you guys built it and it came out to perfection? Like, what was like one of those ideas that you guys had?
That's happened quite a few times where we have to high five each other and be like, oh wow, that actually turned out really good.
One of the simpler ones is when we did an orphanage maze. We did a detention room where it was like floors, wall, and ceiling. It was just black wall panels, and then we just white paint. Like it looked like people were writing like in chalk or whatever, and it was just like just so simple and with a slow flickering strobe. That it was just such a stupid, simple idea that we both agreed on, because that doesn't always happen where we agree immediately.
And let me describe the room real quick. The blink was so slow on the strobe that the actors could move a good few feet before the next blink would happen. And when the blink happened, all you could see was just the white chalk writing on the walls and the actors moving all around. So it just turned out to be a perfect room.
Yeah, and then as far as like one of my favorite things we've ever accomplished, I can't say we've done because we didn't necessarily build it completely by ourselves, but back when we were at the stadium, we were working with another company, and they had the animatronics and like all that sort of know-how. So when we started working together, it was like this perfect storm. It's like Zach and I got the maze design and the detail,
and the actors
they got the fancy props. So when our second year working together, we wanted to do a church, and we were raised Catholic, so doing an exorcism maze was just like a dream come true. And
the stadium always wanted, they're like, we want an effed up maze. We want people to be like, we want people picketing outside. We want like
people throwing up and pissing everywhere. Like they were all about it. So we do this exorcism maze, and we I don't even remember how the idea came about, but we decided to perform a live exorcism for the VIP people. And we built, and when I say we, I mean us and the other company, which doesn't need to be named because we don't like them anymore. Built a church pew and then put that on
airbags,
a metal frame on airbags, like Star Tours kind of,
or like your elevator prop.
Yeah, like a elevator. And then you'd watch an exorcism, and it was all synced to all these lights, sound, and fog, and the seats would shake when you're on it. And that to this day is one of the coolest things I think we've ever done.
Because we built an altar, and we had a nun that was possessed, and then another nun performing the exorcism. And the actors, usually the ones on the table, got so good that they kind of memorize the way the church pew moved and would look like they're controlling it. So they would be like trying to get exercise, but then like pushing and like moving. I'm not on camera. Pushing their arm up and down, and like so it looked like they were controlling the pew. It was so cool.
Yeah,
so cool.
It was. Really
we brought it to Scare LA. I think the last year we
did do it at
Scare LA. We brought the church pew there, but yeah, that was cool. I was gonna say just the exorcism maze as a whole was probably like I think one of our coolest things we did. because people got so upset and so offended.
But people
we got death threats and hate mail. It was crazy.
People were messaging us on Facebook, telling us we're going to burn in hell. I mean, we had people protesting, and like there's this Facebook group here called Temecula Talk. There's like 30,000 comments about shutting it down. Like half people are like, shut it down, and other people are like, it's just Halloween. And Zach got on there and be like, anyone that mentions this post gets $2 off at the box office. And and like then some of our actors started getting on there and started like taunting them, like so. Because this one girl would rip pages out of a Bible and chew it up and spit it at people.
Which we didn't know at the time, but she was doing that. And until people started complaining. So then to alleviate more complaints, we just found a random textbook that was just in the maze. And she covered it in black paper, wrote Bible on it, and started ripping pages. It was a geography textbook. And started doing that. And so like she's like, what, are people going to get upset about geography? So we just made sure they weren't Bibles and they just looked like Bibles. And then
I mean that's the other thing too. It's like that whole maze was full of it was very non-denominational. It wasn't poking fun at any one religion. You know, everything written on the walls
was happy things in Latin.
We looked up happy phrases in Latin, like the Bloodshed Brothers in Latin. We wrote lyrics from Hunchback of Notre Dame, like the song Hellfire. That fucking Disney movie. It's like this burning desire is turning me to sin. That's legit what Frollo sings in Hunchback. But people are like, oh my god, it's so demonic.
Yeah, that was a fun maze.
That was a good maze.
Yes.
And that's the one maze I wish we could bring back is Exorcism.
So that was like one of your guys' most controversial mazes or years.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So with like stuff happening like that, did you guys like ever have like someone like run out the maze or use an emergency exit, like call the police, or like have you guys like tried to shut you guys down right there on the spot because they weren't happy or like they saw something too extreme for their likings?
The downside of being in a pro haunt and not acting is you have to deal with the customer service part of it. And I had this one lady just lay into me about the exorcism maze and how she was so offended and she wanted her money back. And I'm like, you can go to the box office and they're gonna tell you the same thing that I told you. It's like you paid, there's no refunds. Like there was disclaimers, like you knew it was scary, you knew what you're getting into. If you don't like this maze, you don't like the theme, we do have 4 other mazes. Like trying to be as accommodating as possible, and which is something that Zach and I, it's just how we were raised. We're just generally polite people. But that lady goes to the box office and they're like, no, get out of here.
They were mean to her.
Funny. And so it was nice that the stadium had our backs.
But all the time, I mean, emergency exits, whether they were too scared or they just weren't a fan of the maze. Like some people just were like, that was stupid.
Yeah, or like one guy last year, like we had it interactive where you had to like open and close these doors to get from room to room. We just told people it's like if it's a white door, it opens and closes. If it's a brown door with an exit sign, only use it in emergencies. That guy gets in a room. He literally is looking at a white door, looking at a brown door that says exit. He's all like, this doesn't push. You had to pull. This doesn't push. Wrong door. He tries to open the emergency exit. It doesn't go the direction he wants either. He kicks down the door. So, we hear this thud, 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 and I go in there. I'm like, looking at the doors. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I couldn't get out. I'm like, open the white door. He goes, it wouldn't open. And I pulled it. I'm like, pull. And then, so, I'm like, you have to leave now. So it happens.
Yes. I mean, we only did, and people are just so dumb. We did pull because it slowed you down in the maze. Instead of just pushing your way through all these doors, you have to stop. You have to pull it back up a few feet.
And people are also like, oh, what's in there versus like just going straight in. And as interactiveness, it slows people down a little bit, so they think they're in there longer and getting more value for them.
Yeah. And like it feels like the guests feel more interactive, like they have more control over the situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like talking about like interactive haunts and stuff like that, what do you guys think of like a dream interaction haunt where like a story that involves the guest completely, like an immersive theater and stuff like that? Do you guys consider that like a different style of haunt, or do you guys think it's a whole separate thing?
I consider it a haunt. If an immersive theater, I mean, if you're getting scared, I mean, it's not your traditional haunted house, but like I always say, like I don't care how people are haunting as long as they're doing it. if that's your style, if immersive theater is your thing, or if touching's your thing, or if not touching's your thing, or if torture houses are your thing, it's like it. Even with McCamey Manor, I don't think any press for the haunt industry is bad press. If people are so terrified of an intense haunt that it makes them terrified to come to our haunt, I don't see that. I don't find that a
unless
bad thing.
they're not going to come because of that. But
sure. But if they're too scared to come, then I'd rather them be too scared to come and stay home than they show up, are too scared, and now they're being dicks and demanding refunds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a whole crazy thing and situation and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's like, honestly, at the end of the day, like Zach and I are just two dudes that like making haunted houses, like scaring people. So if you want to have a theater, if you want to touch people, I don't care. Like, as long as everyone's happy and having fun and just spreading the love of Halloween, who gives a shit what things are called? Who cares about the labels and everything? It's one thing that, like, the SoCal haunt industry does that the rest of the United States haunt industry doesn't. It's like the titles and the clicks and all like the weird kind of drama that the SoCal haunt industry has is non-existent in anywhere else. But I don't know if it's just because like it's this whole LA vibe or whatever, but I don't care what people do.
Californians love drama.
As long as they're having fun, spreading the spook. That's all I care. That's all I care about.
Yeah, and like people think that like people like us who do haunts, like they stereotype us as like edgy, goth, like maybe suicidal, crazy, like creating and thinking all of these crazy things. How do you think that like stereotype has like changed over the time?
I think because of being able to go out to conventions and meet people and put faces to the madness, and people see that for the 99% of us are just normal people that just like love a holiday, and I think it's only because Halloween isn't as wholesome as Christmas, but it's like, how many fucking weird ass people probably set up Christmas displays excited that kids are coming in their yard, probably more than Halloween, so it's like, what's the point I was trying to make? It's just like, oh yeah, and then like and being on YouTube and social media, and like people can really see that we're not just a bunch of weirdos held up in our garage, listening to sad music, trying to be depressed or God. We're all depressed. We all have anxiety. It's like everyone has it. It's like, why is just because we like Halloween? Why is it any different?
Yeah. Like people like, have you guys ever had like an interaction where like you guys were like preparing stuff or like getting props or like maybe getting a mask or two that you guys were missing and stuff like that, and people come up to you and like say like do you really do haunted houses, and like they kind of like look at you weird and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, people like whenever we're
garage sales,
but just in general, like whenever like we'll get normal people like commenting on our stuff, or if like, or not so much like my current jobs because they get it now, but people being like, why are you gonna go buy stuff for Halloween in March? Like, people don't get that. They're like, well, because they have to make it and then it has to get sold to us or shipped to us by October. Because everyone's like, why aren't you just buying your stuff like so early? That's the main thing we get a lot, especially in the comments when normal non-ters, we call them non-haunters, they start commenting being like, why is this happening in March? It doesn't make any sense. And they're like upset at us for it. It's like, well, one, we didn't tell Trans World to be in March, like, so we just went because it's in March.
But also there's like, like if we go to, like we bought like a box, a big old trunk of like 30 porcelain dolls from this lady in Temecula once, years ago. And she was like, what? She goes, I have to ask, what are two grown men doing with my dolls? And we're like, well, one, they're not yours anymore because I just pay for them. And two, we do a haunted house. And then it turns into, instead of being like, oh, we do a haunted house, like we're weird, it's like, we do a haunted house. Here's a flyer. Come on back and see your shit because it's going to be displayed. Mm-hmm. So now any time we have interaction like that, I always use it as an opportunity to hand someone a flyer, being like, we're not weird. Just come hang out with us this Halloween.
Yeah, like it's crazy because me being so young and still being in school, like I'm like talking like just like telling my friends like I got an idea, do you guys like it or something like that, and people overhearing like, oh, you do a haunt, and like think like you're kind of like weird or crazy or something like that. It's always a funny interaction at times.
Yeah, people from high school like still like know what be like whenever we run into someone from high school, they're like, "Oh, do you guys still do that haunted house stuff?" And when we tell them yes, they're like, "That's weird." But then we're part of like an alumni group for our high school, and I posted up one year like, "Hey, any alumni that wants to come, mention you went to Chaparral 2007 or whatever, you get money off the box office." And I posted just a little trailer that we had filmed. And people were like, "Oh my God!" Like,
it was the popularity we never had.
I know people were like, "Oh my God!" Like, that is so cool that you guys were into this back then, and you're following your dreams. So like, as soon as you get out of all that high school bullshit, people are like, "Holy crap!" Like Jeromy and Zach, it's like they may still have to work their full-time jobs, but
they're doing what they love.
They have been doing what they love since 8th or since fucking 4th grade, and people like really think that's cool and respect that.
Yeah, and like, what actually like got you guys to like think like, hey, maybe this haunt may be a good idea? Like, what made you guys think like, when you guys were so young, like, what made you guys think it'll bring you guys up to where you guys are at now?
It was just so fun.
Well, I know actually it was in 7th grade. Me and Jeremy were in Boy Scouts. And in 7th grade, one of the dads to one of the other scouts did a home haunt in his backyard, but he actually charged money. It wasn't like, "Oh, here's donation" sort of thing. He literally charged money to get in, but he let all of us, the Boy Scouts, if you worked it, the money that was raised, he would divide to the Boy Scouts, for summer camp and blah, blah, blah. So we were working this haunt. We didn't do anything in our parents' house. We worked this haunt. We were there the most out of everyone, even more than his own son, where we were there helping. And we got, I don't remember how much it was, but we literally like, Mr. Mahoney literally could, if he didn't give this money to all these Boy Scouts, he just made a killing letting people in his backyard to scare people. And our dad was there helping too. We're like, "Dad, like, look, this can actually make money. Like, we should try it." And so like when we did the home haunt, like fast forward, now was that 2002? So 2009 and 10, when we did the big home haunt, we put out a donation can and we made some money, which was crazy. And so our parents seeing that, we're like, "Yeah, no, like you could, like this could make money one day."
But also for me, because I forgot about that story, but you did remind me, which I hadn't really thought about till now, and it makes sense till now. I was working at that Boy Scout hunt. I was working this. It was like a drop bridge scare, and then a light turns on from a sensor, and then I was supposed to spray them with air, but the light bulb went out, so I was just looking through this little hole, and my timing was off. And I remember Mr. Mahoney came through and like yelled at me because my timing was off, and it hurt my feelings so much that I said something to my dad, and I got moved spots because he yelled at me. I totally get it now. I would have done the same thing. I've been like, "This little guy's fucking up my whole maze. I'm gonna yell at him too." But for me, I mean, every year it's like it doesn't. Oh, okay, well, it does feel like work, in the sense that it's hot and wall panels are heavy, but it never feels like work. And every year, it's just so much fun, and it makes me feel like a kid. And that's what back then would made me want to keep doing it more so than we can make some money. Is that it was just so much fun. It's like no matter what's going on in either of our lives, it's something that for the most part, yeah, we always come together to do. Whether or not there's crazy girlfriends involved, or which there have been, and it's almost tore apart our whole business. But even through all that, we still find a way to make Halloween happen together. Yeah.
So like, did you guys ever think that you guys get to where you guys are at now?
I didn't even know back then that this is a place you could be. that you could be trying to make money off it. That we would be. I mean, if you were to go back in time and tell 6th grade or 7th grade Jeromy and Zach that by the time they were 30, they were still going to be making haunted houses,
it'd be crazy.
It would sound crazy. And then if you're also telling them that they'd be making haunted houses, but not also making a lot of money doing it, that would also be like, what?
Disappointing.
What? Why? But yeah, and no, I never would have thought. I never would have thought that we would have started. I mean, because YouTube obviously didn't exist back then. That we'd be vloggers, that we'd be pro hunters, that we'd be still into the same thing that we've been into for 20 years. Never would have thought.
Yeah. And do you guys think that it'll keep on going for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, or until the day you guys die or something?
I mean,
I'd say 50 might be pushing.
We'll
be 80.
If we can get to a point where we can hire someone else to maybe build
like a normal business. We're the owners and we're hiring managers.
But we can get to that point. It'd be nice to retire. Mm-hmm. But some years, honestly, some years are way harder than others, and we look at each other and be like, "Man, this is it. We're done." But just being able to put some tombstones in Zach's front yard with a fog machine, some cool lights, pass out candy to trick-or-treaters one night a year. We call it. Then that's it. That sounds so nice and relaxing for how much work we've done over the last 20 years. That's what would make me stop. But I mean, it is a conversation our family has had, our parents and us, and it's how many years are we gonna do this? How many years can we do this? And it's should we bother to keep sinking all this money in this thing? And that's a lot. That's a whole thing to unpack.
If you're looking at it broken up, because right now our pro hunt career is kind of in this a second stage.
It's choppy.
It's just choppy because it was okay, we had a sweet 5-year gig at the stadium, but that was kind of just to get our foot into the door, because we were just running an event. We weren't essentially even managing the event. We had people that we had to go to for stuff. We had essentially a boss. So doing it. So this is last year was our second year doing this, where me and Jeromy are fully in charge of everything
and sinking all of our own money into it.
Yeah, we had a budget at the stadium, so we didn't have to buy anything. If we wanted to buy stuff, it was obviously ours to keep. But so this is the first time, and the first time in our lives where we've been financially able to do that, to start buying our own stuff and being able to do that. So it feels kind of a new
things though.
A new we're new pro hunters because we're trying to do it on our own. And even though we're at a venue who wants a hunt, they said, "Here's the space. Do you guys just do your thing? Do your thing. We'll have someone run the ticket booth, and that's it." And
but also turning 31 this year, it's you really start to feel it. I know it's what old people say, but it's all of a sudden 28, 29, 30, 31, it's things hurt more. It's what do you mean I can't just jump off a ladder? What do you mean I can't just pull myself up on a wall panel? What do you mean it physically? It's it's a whole different. It's a whole different thing now.
It's crazy,
and it's nuts. It's the weirdest. You'll see. It's the weirdest thing in the world to be up all night in your 20s building hunts.
Because you feel the same mentally.
Yeah, mentally, I'm because we're Friday night we're pulling an all-nighter. Sundown to sun up. We're at the hunt, and then 10:30 rolls around. It's well, I'm tired and hungry, so I think I'm gonna go home.
It's and if we go and eat, we're just gonna be more sleepy. So let's just go home.
Yeah, at the stadium, we pulled all-nighters all the time. Work until 2, 3, 4 a.m.
Our first year at the stadium, we borrowed our grandparents' RV, and we just stayed the night every night in the RV in the parking lot.
Got a few hours, went back. Now it's if I don't get my full 8 for work the next day or in between, it's it's miserable.
We won't be able to function.
I mean, you got a fever from just being exhausted.
I did.
Zach literally worked himself into a fever,
and I got food poisoning. But
yeah.
Yeah. So stuff like that may bring some difficulties across running a whole hunt, stuff like that. And you guys have this whole big name behind you guys, and you guys have to do something at a certain quality, or you'll just stop losing people coming out.
Yeah, no, I mean that is one of the downsides of having a brand or being a brand as the Bloodshed Brothers. We've made this name for ourselves, even to the point where it's if Zach goes somewhere without me, let's just say Spook Show. I didn't go to the Spook Show last year because it was too damn hot and I had to work. Zach went to the Spook Show by himself, and people are "Where's Jeromy? Where's the other brother?"
Hey Zach, how are you? It's just hey, where's the other one?
Yeah, I mean literally being brothers is part of our brand. And so people are expecting videos, are expecting a hunt. So so to that sense, I can't imagine a world where we ever stop. I could maybe see us not filming as much because that's just a little hobby. But to that logic, I can't see us stopping.
Mm. So I think we've reached around the end of the talk. thank you guys so much for watching. Do you guys have anything to plug or share for the podcast?
I mean, just follow the Bloodshed Brothers on
social medias,
YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, the TikToks. Hyde Street has its own Instagram too. Just
Facebook.
On Facebook, just Google the Bloodshed Brothers and just follow us everywhere.
Mostly TikTok. That's where the youths are at. That's where we're trying to. That's where we're trying to make it big next is TikTok.
We do have one viral TikTok. It's like not a big deal, whatever.
500,000 views.
Whatever. But yeah, just follow us everywhere. YouTube, we do videos as much as we can.
Our haunt was canceled for COVID this year, so we'll just be gearing up for next year on our videos. Like Jeromy said, we're gonna start getting animatronics worked on, and that'll be fun videos and stuff. And we're gonna be seeing us just around. Say hi to us during haunt season. We're gonna try to go to any haunt that's open. We're doing the urban legend one. We're doing
on a hayride.
Yeah, so we'll at least those two.
We're gonna go to house serve. We're gonna go to as many home haunts and yard haunts as we can.
Reign of Terror, and then on Reign of Terror, like we'll either like stop at home haunts or on the way home stop at home haunts, sort of thing.
We're gonna try to be all over. So if you want us to come to your haunt and you're open, message us.
Yeah, that'd be easier than trying to track everyone down. Yeah, that's open.
Well, thank you everyone for watching, and I'll tag and link everything down below if you guys want.